Portlife Church. Our vision is to bring life to the Port community and beyond. We do this by knowing, loving and serving our God, our church, our college, our community and our world.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome to Portlife Online today. It's so good to be able to still do church together here online if you weren't able to make it to Portlife earlier this morning. Right now we won't be doing worship in our service today, but we do have a link to our Spotify playlist. It looks like this. That link is in our description below and you can check that out and listen to some worship songs during the week. These are all the songs we do here at Portlife on a regular basis. And of course you can go and watch any of our other services with our worship there. I'd like to say thank you to those who have been giving regularly to our church online. It's been great. Our BSB and account details are here, or there's a link in our description to our website and you can give on there. It's portlife.org.au/give. And now Peter Rainbow, who's our pastoral care pastor, he's going to be sharing communion with us, followed by Sally Poyser, who is our women's pastor, who's bringing us part 2 of our series on relationships. Enjoy the service.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Well, here we are towards the end of July 2020, still in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. And in South Australia, I guess we've had things pretty good, but across the border right now, there's real frustration and desperation as people try to stop the spread of the virus. And I guess for individuals as they try and sort out their short-term needs with making sure they have enough supplies for any shutdowns that are taking place. And then there's the longer-term stress and worry for many, which is the fear of death itself. You know, fortunately, despite this disease being very communicable, it hasn't been as bad as we were first fearing. Not as many people have died as we were told to prepare for, which I'm very, very thankful for. But nonetheless, the fact that many people across the world have died has meant that there is a desperate search for a vaccine. Many, many hours and many resources and lots of money are being poured into trying to find a cure for this disease. And can you imagine that if the death rate of this disease was, say, twice what it actually is? Or can you imagine the desperation if it was 3 times what it actually is? Or imagine 4 times the death rate that we are currently seeing across the world. The panic would be immense. But you see, when we talk about disease and death rates, we're really not talking about lifespans or reduced lifespans. We're not talking about death rates in an absolute sense, because the reality is that the death rate for humanity is 100%. All of us, sooner or later, need to face the fact that we're going to die. And that's because the Bible tells us the reason for that is because of sin entering the world. As humankind, we have lived in rebellion to God. We choose our things over and above the things that He's calling us to. The good news is that while the penalty of sin is death, that there's a cure for our predicament. Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14 to 15 says this: because God's children are human beings made of flesh and blood, the Son also became flesh and blood. For only as a human being could He die, and only by dying could He break the power of the devil, who has the power of death. Only in this way could He set free all those who have lived their lives as slaves to the fear of dying. Yes, most, if not all of us, unless Jesus returns quickly, will experience physical death at some point. But for those of us who've put our trust in Jesus, death need hold no fear. It's merely a transition that will put all of the frustrations, all the fears, all the worries, all the stresses and all the pain of this life behind us. And so as we eat and drink this morning, I'd love us just to take a moment to reflect on the fact that Jesus came in the flesh, that He was a flesh and blood human being like I, in order that He might be a perfect sacrifice to deal with the fear of death and secure our future, but also to enable us to have a relationship with God in the here and now. Let's eat and drink in remembrance of all that Jesus has done. Father, I thank you so much that Jesus participated in our humanity, that he is able to identify with us at every level and ultimately able to become a perfect sacrifice and substitute for us. I thank you, Lord, that we need not fear death. Our eternity is secure in you. And that in the here and now, we can enjoy the privilege of walking with you day by day. God, may you bless everyone here watching today in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre. So good to see you all here this morning. And yes, I am going to be continuing our series on relationships. We're looking at all different types of relationships, whether it's with your family members, with people that you work with, your friends, all of those kind of things. And if you know me, you'll know I'm pretty passionate about talking and reading about relationships and helping people with relationships. I've read a lot of books, I've talked to a lot of people. And you know, after all my years, I'm talking a couple of decades of really researching and talking to people and looking at things, I think I've come up with the reason why relationships are so challenging. And the reason why relationships are so challenging is because they have people in them. You take the people out and it's easy. If you just have one person, no drama, no conflict, no worries. The problem is when you get imperfect people and you put them in a relationship, whatever that relationship is, you are going to have conflict. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have worry and hurting each other. That's just going to happen. It's a natural product of a relationship. And of course, the easiest solution is, as I said, to have no relationships, but then you miss out on the joy that comes from relationship, from the companionship, from the fun that comes from, and encouragement that comes from being with other people. And so in this series, we want to look at practical ways that we can have good relationships, because if we have good relationships, it impacts every area of our life. As Andre just said, Josh spoke last week about the Grateful Eight, and if you missed that, I really encourage you to listen to that. And like Andre was saying, I've been doing the same thing. Like I was whinging this morning, I was lying in my nice warm bed, and the alarm went off at 7 o'clock, and I'm like, I really don't want to get up. And I thought, think of 8 things you can be grateful for, Sal. And I did, and I started doing that, and by the end of that, my attitude was completely changed. Still took me a while to get up, didn't it? But I had a better attitude when I got up. Today, I want to look at how we can show grace to each other. I've called this Perfect Strangers and Flawed Friends, basically for this reason, that you know when you first meet people, it's like you're a blank slate, they're a blank slate, they're perfect in your eyes, they've done nothing wrong, they've done nothing to offend you, and the more you get to know them, that's when you begin to see their flaws. You begin to see the real them. And it's true, the deeper we go into a relationship with people, the closer we get to them, the more we begin to hurt each other and the more we begin to see each other's issues. I remember reading an article a while ago, some of you might have done the same, about the reason why kids are so grotty when they come home from school. I don't mean physically grotty, I just mean attitude-wise, why they can get so annoying and irritating. And it's because they've had to try and be so good all day at school. And then they come home and then they're finally, because that's a whole bunch of people they don't know super well, then they come home and they're in a safe place and they can let out all the negative emotions. And I think we're all like that. I don't think it's just school kids. I think we all can be a bit like that. We put on our nice face at work for the clients and the customers and all that kind of thing, and then we come home and then we let it all out on the people that we love the most. And so this is why we need grace, especially with those that we are closest to. Romans 11:5 calls grace undeserved kindness. It's giving people kindness when they don't deserve it, when they actually deserve the opposite, when they deserve consequences for the way they're acting. It's showing kindness instead. It is the opposite of grace is criticism, judgment, revenge, punishing people, getting them back, making them suffer, reminding them constantly of what they've done. Back when Josh and I first got married, we'd only been married a year. We were living in Nightcliff in Darwin. And so this is 20 odd years ago. And if you know me, I'm not the world's greatest driver, just putting it out there. You know, I do my best, I try very hard. But when it comes to parking and things like that, I'm not super great. But at our townhouse that we had in Darwin, it had a 2-car carport. And I think I've got a picture of it up there. It's probably a bit hard to see. But it was 2 cars, which I loved because I could just drive straight in the middle. Done. Easy. Then my mum and dad came to visit and they parked on the right-hand side. And I remember one time mum and I went to shopping or something, and as we were driving back, we were chatting. Of course we were chatting. Probably I was talking. So I may have been slightly distracted. But as we drove in, I remember thinking, oh, their car's parked there on the right. I've got to be really careful and make sure I go to the left and don't hit their car. And so as I drove, I actually drove right on the edge of the left pole and scraped the car all along that left pole. Not a good sound. Anyway, then I panicked and I reversed. And I think I turned the wheel a little as I reversed, trying to get off the pole. And so I reversed sort of back, scraped all along the car again, and sort of managed to get the car wrapped around the pole. So I stopped because I realised I was not getting out of that, and I got out of the car and I looked at this big, like it was big, this big scrape along the side of the car. And Josh was in the house and he heard the sound, so he came out, and I remember thinking, oh dear. Because I had never seen him get really angry. In a year of marriage, I'd not seen him get really angry, and I thought, well, I think I'm about to see it. And he came out and he looked at the car and he looked at me. And he looked at the car and he looked at me, and then he just went, oh, I kid you not. And then I think he had to actually lift the car off the pole. I don't know if Dad helped with that or not. And I was waiting for it. I was waiting for him, maybe when Mum and Dad went around to get stuck into me. And he didn't. He didn't mention it again. He didn't go on about it every time we drove around with this big scratch mark on the car. He didn't say anything about it after that day. And for me, who was expecting something, I felt like I deserved something for that. I was not paying attention enough. That was so incredible to receive that grace from him. And I never forgot it, and it made me love him all the more. Did you? Did you tell it the same way? No, I just told them the story. Oh, right. So the staff knew that already, right? Mine was a longer version though, right? And you didn't get pictures, yeah? I didn't know that. We've not talked about this, obviously. Anyway, to be gracious to others, as Josh was to me, means to love, it means to forgive, it means to be kind, and it means to let it go. So the 3 reasons I want to say, first of all, why we should show grace. The first reason, and probably the most important, is because God showed grace to us. In Ephesians 2, verse 4, it says, "But God is so rich in mercy, and he loved us so much, that even though we were dead because of our sins, he gave us life when he raised Christ from the dead. It is only by God's grace you have been saved." So God can point to us in all future ages as examples of the incredible wealth of his grace and kindness towards us, as shown in all that he has done for us who are united with Christ Jesus. God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. We don't deserve God's grace. We don't earn God's grace. We were sinners, and he chose to give his grace towards us, even though it cost Jesus' life. And we are called to show grace too. I just want to show a couple of scriptures. Colossians 4 verse 6, which says, "Let your conversation always be full of grace." And 2 Peter 3:18, which says that we must grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. It's something that should be part of our everyday language. When we speak, our words should be full of grace. And it's something that we are called to grow in and to be better at day by day. We should also show grace because we want others to be gracious to us. Like when I expected retribution, when I expected, anger, and I got grace from Josh. That was the sweetest thing. Because, sometimes we just stuff up, or sometimes we have a bad day, or sometimes we're grumpy, or sometimes we're tired, or sometimes we're stressed, or sometimes we're in pain, and sometimes we just are not nice people to be around. And when people just show us grace and just let it go in that time, and if you've ever had that happen to you, and I'm sure hopefully all of you have had that happen, you know how sweet that is. They're just, they understand that I'm just having a bad day, and they've just shown me that grace. And finally, if we don't show grace, relationships will break down. As I said before, the closer the relationship, the greater opportunity we have to hurt each other. And the greater opportunity to hurt each other because we care more about what the other person thinks and we care more about what they say. And so we have that potential to cause more grief. And one option, and I see this a lot and hear this a lot, is this idea of revenge. You know, revenge is sweet. And if anyone has tried that path, you know it is not sweet. But it is a very popular idea in culture. And another thing I'm seeing a lot of is just cutting people off. You know, like, and I don't mean cut them off in your car. I mean cut them off in terms of a relationship. I'm done with that. Like, I'll see people post about it on social media. They'll be like, I'm cutting these people because they've done this and this. Or I'm cutting this person because they did that. I'm done with them. And you can do that when people hurt you. But if you do that with everyone, you're going to have no relationships left. If you just cut everyone who offends you, you'll only be left with superficial relationships. Because then as soon as you go deeper, people are going to hurt you again. The other option we have is to show grace. When we show grace, it helps heal relationships. It helps those relationships thrive. It's a little bit like we've got a ensuite has a sliding door. We were just talking about it yesterday, how it irritates us, but it has this really squeaky noise. And I probably need to put some WD-40 or some oil. I can't remember what John was telling me. My father-in-law was telling me something I need to put in it to stop it squeaking. But that's what grace is like. It's like that bit of oil that just makes everything easier, that everything's smoother in a relationship when we pour out grace on each other. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not talking here about if you're being physically or emotionally abused in a relationship. We still need to show grace, but we also need to show wisdom in circumstances like that. And if that is a situation you're dealing with any kind of relationship, then I encourage you to get godly counsel to make sure you're being protected as well. But in everyday relationships, grace is what allows relationships to thrive. But it can be hard to do when someone is continuing to hurt us over a period of time, just by the sheer fact of us knowing them and spending time with them. So I want to give you 5 tips today for how we can show grace to others. The first one is that we shouldn't punish, but we should be kind. Romans 12:17 says, never pay back evil with more evil. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. And I love that because you know what? Sometimes other people don't want to live in peace with you. But our responsibility is to make sure that we do everything we can to show grace to that person, to show love and forgiveness and kindness. And then if they choose not to reciprocate, then, you know, that's between them and God. But as far as it depends on us, we need to live at peace. Dear friends, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. For the scriptures say, I will take revenge. I will pay them back, says the Lord. Instead, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them something to drink. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals of shame on their head. Don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good. I tell you what, if you're ever really struggling with someone, I encourage you to go read that passage over several times. It's a good reminder to us that the way that evil and sin and wrong in other people's lives is not conquered by doing evil in response to them, but by showing kindness, by being good to that person. The second point comes from that scripture as well, is that we need to trust that God will sort them out. Often we can worry that if we show grace to people, then they'll just keep doing the same wrong thing over and over again. And do you know what? They probably will. Because they're flawed human beings, just like you and I do the same wrong things over and over again. And we think, oh, God, help me. And you know, God may help us as time goes on. But we still struggle with the same areas of sin in our life. We all do. So the challenge is then we've got to learn to trust that God will deal with that person, that God will convict with that person in his time and in his way, which may not be our time and our way. We've got to trust that he is a good God and he's a just God. And he doesn't punish people like we punish them with vengeance and with a nasty attitude. He does it with a just attitude. Instead, we should follow Jesus' example. In 1 Peter 2, verse 21, it says, for God called you to do good, even if it means suffering, just as Christ suffered for you. He is your example, and you must follow in his steps. He never sinned nor deceived anyone. He did not retaliate when he was insulted, nor threaten revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of God, who always judges fairly. We have to trust that our God is good and that he can sort them out in his time and his way. The third thing I want to encourage us all to do is to assume the best of people and not the worst. You know, it's very rare, I think, that people lie in bed in the morning and they think, right, today I'm going to ruin Sally's day. Sometimes it feels like that's what's happened, but I think it's very rare that people actually intentionally go out to destroy people's lives. And we often so easily, and I know because I do this, we read into what people say or don't say. We read into what people do or don't do. They didn't reply to my text message, I must have offended them, or maybe I've done, they don't like me anymore, or they didn't invite me when they invited somebody else. Maybe, they don't like, they're not my friend anymore, or they forgot my birthday, they don't care about me. It's so easy for us to read into those situations and to assume that because this happened, then it must mean this worst case scenario. And I want to encourage us as a people, let's be people who assume the best of people, who go, you know what, maybe they were just busy, maybe they just forgot, maybe they had a different purpose, maybe something else happened. Let's assume the best of people, not the worst. 1 Corinthians 13:7 says that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Let's believe for and hope for and assume the best of people. Let's not assume that they hate us or assume that this action means that or the lack of that action means that. But let's assume that people are imperfect people doing their best, unless it's proven otherwise. Number 4, let's not be people who keep score. 1 Corinthians 13:5 says, love keeps no record of being wronged. I think we all excel, or I know I do, at keeping a record of all the good things that I do and a record of all the bad things other people do. You know what I mean? Like, I just got the dinner on, I got the kids sorted, put them in bed, I, did the washing, I did this and did that, and he just sat in front of the TV and forgot to bring the milk home. And he didn't do this, and he didn't, it's so easy. Sorry, darling, that's not an example from real life. I'm talking other people, but But do you know people who do this? And maybe possibly we do it ourselves sometimes too. Like, I always invite them over for dinner, and I cook this amazing dinner, and they never invite me over. That's, again, not me. I never do that. I'm terrible at cooking. But, or I'm always the one shouting coffee, or I lent them $20 and they never pay me back. And, I always catch up on them and make sure they're okay, and they never check up on me. It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking we're the good one in the relationship and the other one is the bad one in the relationship, and not giving them any credit for the good things that they do. And there might be different good things that we do, but because they're not the good things that we do, we don't give them credit for it. And this way of thinking destroys relationships, because you're never going to win. You might win in your tally and they might lose, but you lose in the relationship. Instead, we need to show grace. We need to give, we need to love, we need to forgive, we need to be kind, we need to be generous without expecting anything in return. We need to do that without keeping score. Romans 5:20, this is what God did. It says, but as people sinned more and more, God's wonderful grace became more and more abundant. He responded to our sin with more and more grace. God help us to have that same heart and attitude in all of our relationships. And the final point, in the words of Elsa, we need to let it go. And I'm not going to sing it. I think we can be really good at stewing over things, at over-analysing things, overthinking things, oversharing things with other people, about a situation that happened. That one little comment or one little thing, and we can about it to a whole bunch of people and talk about it and analyse it and complain about it. And that kind of thinking just destroys relationships. Grace means someone said something offensive, let it go. Someone forgot something, let it go. Let it just be water off a duck's back. Move on. Don't overthink it. Don't give it the time of day. Because if we let those little thoughts of, what does that mean? And what do they do by that? And you let that sink into your head, it becomes like a poison. And it can totally change the way you think about that person and the way you interact with them. When people are rude, when they're offensive, when they're annoying, just give them some space. They're probably having a bad day. And not just give them space, let's give them a bit of grace. Just like we want grace given to us. You know, Jesus said in Matthew 5:38, he said, "You've heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also." I know this is a passage a lot of people struggle with, but I want to point out Jesus does not say if someone is stabbing you in the gut, roll over and make sure they can stab you in the head as well. It's not talking about someone trying to kill you. It's not talking about someone trying to absolutely destroy you viciously. When someone slaps you, if you've ever slapped someone, as I have, not Josh, someone else, I got offended, feels good for about a second and then you feel really guilty. But, you know, when I slapped someone, it was out of offence. And it was a quick, no thinking, oh, how dare you speak to me like that kind of a reaction. And when someone is slapped, it stings for a moment, but that's it. It is a small sting. And so what Jesus is saying is when people lash out at you, I don't think he's meaning physically, he's talking about verbally, when they just lash out because they're offended and they're hurt and their words sting you. Instead of like going back at them, slapping them back, and then we start getting into fisticuffs, just take it. Just stand there. Because if someone slaps you, if someone lashes out, and you just take it, it de-escalates the situation straight away. Later in this series, we're going to also be looking at forgiveness, which is a huge part of letting things go. And I really want to encourage you. I don't want to touch on that today because we are looking at it later, but I really want to encourage you, make sure you're listening to that. If this is something you struggle with, if you struggle to let things go, you need to learn about forgiveness as well. Being in relationships naturally means that people are going to offend us. The deeper we get into a relationship, the more the people around us, our family, the people we work with, our friends, the more they're going to hurt us. That's a natural consequence of that deepening relationship. And my encouragement to you today, and my encouragement to me, I need this too desperately, is let us be a people who show grace. Let us be a people who are known for the gracious words that come out of our mouths, for the gracious actions that we show to others. That is the kind of person I want to be. I want to be a gracious person. And I know this is something I struggle with, but we can take what the Bible says. That instead of punishing people, let's be kind and just trust God to sort them out. Let's assume the best of people, not the worst. Let's not be people who keep score, but instead let's be people who just let it go. When your kid breaks your phone, when your husband walks on the floor that you just mopped 10 minutes ago and you told him only 10 minutes ago, please don't come in with those muddy boots because I've just mopped the floor, and he does it anyway. Again, not from real life. When everyone from work leaves their coffee mug in the sink and doesn't wash it. Again, when your best friend forgets your birthday. When your sibling criticises the way you parent. Whatever it is, let's be people who show grace. I really want to encourage you this week in particular, when you have those situations occur, when things happen, take a deep breath and say, God, just help me to show grace in this situation, just like you showed grace to me. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we just thank you that you are a gracious God, that you gave everything to us when we didn't deserve it. And I pray today that as we read your word, that it will just convict us and encourage us and remind us to show that same grace to everyone around us. We thank you, Jesus, and we just pray you bless everyone. In Jesus' name, amen.